Hi, it's Steve here from Wentworth Festival, and it's nearly time for our big comeback gig, which is happening on Saturday, the 18th of September, where we're going to be joined on stage by the incredible Hazell Dean, who joins me now for a chat to say hello as well. Hazell, welcome along, and hopefully you're looking forward to being with us at Wentworth.
Oh, of course I am. I can't wait.
For what turns out is going to be one of your last performances. We didn't know this until just a couple of days ago. What's the story there?
Well, to be honest with you, even before lockdown, I had been thinking about, it's in the next few years, I want to stop with the live performances. Nothing to do with the actual show itself. It's just, it's everything that goes on around it. It's the sitting in traffic. And remember, I've been in the industry now for 51 years.
Incredible.
I feel I've paid my dues.
You've earned the rest.
I think I've earned the rest, yeah. I mean, I'm still going to be doing bits and bobs recording-wise and putting some stuff out. And so I will be dabbling. But it's just the live performances, to be honest with you.
I mean, when you've been doing it as long as that, you're bound to miss it, aren't you? You're going to miss that on-stage buzz, or do you think you won't?
No, I will miss that. I will miss that. I will miss that connection with an audience because, there is nothing like it.
Yeah.
I will also miss all the people that I bump into. I'm really going to miss the backstage stuff because, I mean, a lot of stuff I do at shows, and I'm on my own a lot of the time, but, when I'm doing all the festivals, that have become such a big part of my life over the last 10 years. I am going to miss bumping into I will miss that stuff. Of course I will do. But for instance, I did a festival last Sunday and I didn't feel back to my normal self until Thursday. It takes me quite a while to sort of, I'm not a young thing anymore.
Give over.
And I mean, for instance, and also a few weeks ago, we were up in Liverpool and which would normally take me about 5 hours. It took me 7 hours to get there. And then there was it's just all the little stressful things along the way. I mean, if I could click my fingers.
I was just about to say that. I was just about to say.
All up with my bling.
From one gig to the next and back home again.
I wouldn't hesitate, but it's everything. Yeah. All the stuff, the stress and everything around it, really. And I think that's, I think that's the main thing. And I will be honest with you that, after a while, my voice does burn out quicker than it used to. So, it's all those sort of things. I mean, because my show is very high powered.
It is.
It's high energy. And it's, we have to face the facts that we are getting older. It's all that kind of stuff, really. Yeah.
But what a career it's been. As you say, the career's not finishing. You're not packing in. You're still going to be recording.
I'm still going to do some bits and bobs. Definitely. Yeah. I couldn't just cut it off just like that.
Not when it's in your blood like it is.
No. It would be silly. And don't get me wrong, I am going to miss being on stage, definitely.
You mentioned the career, it's been 51 years, which then if you kind of do the maths, it takes us back to before we knew you from the high energy days, so does that mean you were kind of cutting your teeth, doing the clubs and that 70s. Kind of in the 70s? Yeah.
Well, I left home when I was 17 and I worked, I mean, in those days you would have the Mecca ballrooms. Do you know about all that?
Yeah, the big dance halls. Yeah,
there would be most Mecca ballrooms in those days would have two bands on. There'd be a big band and there'd be a small group, and we'd have the revolving stage, which I loved. But I mean, even before that, even when I was younger, I was singing in local bands in Essex, doing sort of little gigs in and around Essex. So I've always been in the music business from an early age. But yeah, all through the 70s, I sang in lots of different bands up and down the country. I was a session singer. I did all sorts of things.
You cut some records, didn't you? You had some records out on Decca.
Mid 70s. I was signed to Decca Records. I did a song for Europe in 76. I was recording then. It's quite a long career, and I've done a lot of stuff. So I didn't actually have a hit record until sort of 12 or 13 years down the line from those early days. So
by which point
yeah.
you'd cut your teeth, you knew what you were doing,
Yeah,
you'd learned the
I did.
stagecraft and all that kind of. Do you think that
Exactly.
do you think that training kind of helped you when it came to performing on the big national and international stage? Then when it came
Oh
in
yeah,
the
definitely.
80s,
And plus, when I was about 16, in fact, before I left home, I went to a school of singing, the Morris Burnham School of Singing for good little girls like me. And yeah, I used to travel from my home in Chelmsford in Essex, and I used to travel into London once a week and have singing lessons. And in fact, from that school of singing, it was quite interesting. They help you to get your first professional job.
all right,
It's interesting to see if you get that kind of stuff these days.
yeah, sure,
And I did. They helped me get do an audition for a chap who used to work for Mecca called Phil Tate, lovely man. And I had to do an audition for a band that were going to set up in Stoke-on-Trent,
right,
in a little ballroom, a little club called the Valley High, which was it was the small club underneath the big ballroom upstairs where there was a big band. And that was my first professional job when I left home.
Wow, fantastic! And these gone.
No, I was just going to say, and I've never not worked since. You know, from that day on, that was it.
So what took you into that kind of high energy era then? Because for us it was like our disco, wasn't it, in the 80s? It was coming from the underground clubs. We were kind of experiencing what America had experienced in the mid to late 70s. How did you find yourself in that kind of genre?
Well, back in the 70s, one of the bands that I used to sing in was Andy Ross Band, and we used to be at the Lyceum, which was the best disco in town on a Saturday night. Capital Radio used to, they used to go, yeah, come to the best disco in town. So it'd be the Andy Ross Band. And then on the other side of the stage, which in those days was kind of a newish thing, a DJ would be on the other side of the stage. And so that's how it became the best disco in town. But I was doing, things, some of the Gloria Gaynor, Never Can Say Goodbye. And that song, for me, was the first big high energy song of its time. Yeah. And I loved that song. And
it was on Motown as well, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I was a huge Motown fan, huge. But it was that song that sort of, I liked that song and I sang it. And I use it as an encore in my show up to this day. It's just such a great song. But I've sung jazz. I started off singing jazz and pop, different genres of music. And I love sort of soul. I love the 70s and 80s soul stuff. I used to do a lot of that. I try and include stuff in my show. For instance, I've got a new opening in the show now. Let's Go Round Again.
Oh, brilliant song.
Let's go round again. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff. So I was kind of singing that kind of stuff as well. In the 70s through to the early 80s. But Ian Stevens, who wrote and produced Searching, I had some hits with Decca Records on the Northern Soul circuit back in the 70s, which I actually didn't know. I had a song, I did a version, a very Gloria Gaynor type of song, Our Day Will Come. It's got Gloria Gaynor all over it, but it worked. It was fantastic. Probably about 74 or 75, I recorded that. And a song called Got You Where I Want You, Babe, written by Paul Curtis, who produced the stuff as well. And unbeknown to me, it was played a lot on the Northern Soul circuit. And Ian Stevens had heard my voice on these particular tracks. And he'd got this song, Searching, and he'd got the track. And he used various different artists on it, but it just wasn't quite working. So basically, he tracked me down through publishing companies. I had a publishing deal with Chapel at the time, and he kind of tracked me down. And I heard Searching, probably heard Searching at the end of 82. And it was just, it was so different from anything else that I'd heard. It was just something, the cowbells, the claptrap, all that kind of thing. It was like very fresh. And I also liked the fact that the track was quite empty in many ways. It was, everything sounded crisp and lovely. And it was just so different from anything else that was going on. But the difference that I made to that song is when it came to the chorus, I took it up the octave.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, that wasn't there
Rather than,
originally. Right.
no, it was kind of just sung quite flat, really. So it didn't sort of, and it was all it needed.
Yeah.
And it just suddenly the song came to life. And yeah, we recorded it in London at that was there now near Euston Scorpio Studios, and it just sounded fabulous. Basically,
So was high energy a thing then, or was this kind of the early days of high energy?
It was early days.
That became known as. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. And Searching was like the first record of its type to sort of cross over into the mainstream chart.
Sure.
And it took a lot of hard work to get it there, but we did in the end.
And did I read something on your website that said that if you'd won Song for Europe, then that maybe wouldn't have happened?
Oh yeah, it went out originally in 1983. It was released, I think it was May, and I mean, God, it was a huge club hit all over the world. I mean, I travelled to the States. The first place it was a hit was in Holland and Belgium. They actually put it out as a single. But but it was a massive club, huge on the gay charts. It was and still is a gay anthem. And I worked it. You know, I went everywhere with that. With
every
that
club, every PA.
anyone else fronting that, because in those days, you especially on the little independent labels, stuff would go out and they'd have other people front it.
Yeah.
And
okay.
Thought, no one's going to do that on this. I'm going to make sure that I go out and I sing that song. And
they go out and mime and that kind of thing, you mean?
Yeah.
Wow.
I was asked to front a couple of them. I said, no, I'm not doing that. So I just how it was back in those days, So I went everywhere to PA that song, and in the end, it paid off.
It worked, and it became.
And then what happened? Sorry, I'll just finish this.
Yeah,
story,
sure.
How that happened. So what happened? Because I'm a songwriter, and in 1984, although Searching was a massive club hit, we Barry Evangelis at Proto Records, which is small independent, he deleted Searching at that point in time, and I got a song in the last 8 for the Song for Europe, and so we decided that, well, I'll do the Song for Europe, and that's how I met Pete Waterman, by the way, through the Song for Europe, because he put me together with a producer who produced the song. It was a big ballad, and so we did the Song for Europe, and we said, well, if we don't win the Song for Europe, we'll re-release Searching, because there was still a demand on Searching. And that's kind of how it happened. I did the Song for Europe. We didn't win it. It was run by Bal and the Devotions, and he was also a big friend of mine. We've known each other for years, and so we re-released Searching, and
history was made. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. It's bizarre, isn't it?
In more ways than one, because not only did it was a massive part of that what went on to become known as high energy, but it led you then to the early days of Stock Aitken Waterman. Those 3 lads themselves went on to make history, and not just here but around the world. They cheesed off the music industry left, right, and centre, because these 3 lads were just dominating everything from their little studio. And I love that. I love that story that you were just hanging around in Proto Records one day, and Pete Waterman came in and said, "Well, what have you got lined up next?" Wasn't it? Is that how the story went?
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Pete was. They actually had recorded a track. They were doing a track for Proto Records, and that was in their very early days, obviously. And they were doing it was something called "Agents Aren't Aeroplanes," and I just happened to walk into Proto one day, and I was, sitting high in the charts with Searching, and Pete Waterman was in there, and I hadn't seen him since I'd done the Eurovision thing.
Yeah.
And Pete just says, "Well, what's happening now, then, kid?" He calls everyone.
Just hear him saying that.
Yeah, I know. And and so I said, "Well, basically, Pete, I need a follow up," and I did, because Ian Stevens he'd gone off to America. And so, I'm thinking, I need a follow-up, So he just said, "Look, why don't you come down and meet these 2 guys I'm working with?" And they were doing stuff at the Marquee Studio. They were doing another track for Proto Records with another artist. And so I said, okay. So I went down and met Mike and Matt Marquee, and I heard this track. And it was the backing track to Divine, "You Think You're a Man." And I mean, it was you know, it was a fantastic studio and the sound was superb. And there's a thunderous track coming out, and I'm thinking, oh yes, I want some of that. And I just said, Lois, you know, plenty of cowbells, all that kind of stuff. And the next single was Whatever I Do, of course.
Whatever I Do, and then
their
that
first
of course
top 5 record.
their first top 5, and then also went on to influence some of their other big hits then, because Dead or Alive heard your version of Whatever I Do and said they wanted that sound on You Spin Me Round. Bananarama then wanted that sound for Venus. So you were there trend setting without even realizing it, but you're by teaming up with Mike, Matt and Pete. Yeah.
So that's how that all happened. So they're great stories, aren't they? Yeah.
And when you look back on that time now, I know it's been said before that Pete wanted his own little Motown. Do you feel that is what it was? It was the British Motown, a little team of people and artists all working together.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely. It was definitely influenced by the way they worked. I mean, obviously, it was different when I first started with them because we were all just sort of not starting out, but you know, it was a lot smaller. I guess for me, I enjoyed those earlier days.
Yeah.
More than further down the line. But because after a while, when it got bigger and bigger, it was just, you know, get you in there, do your vocals. And so, as long as I like the songs, you know, then that is how they worked. And then maybe, I always remember Pete Waterman saying once, you know, it's a bit like a football team. I pull one player in, and then another player goes over. It's a bit like that. But in those early days, I thought, okay. In those early days, I think they were my favourite times because we'd go in and we'd record, and then we'd always go around to the pub and have a chat about it. And it was great. It was fantastic fun.
But you fast forward now to where we are today, and you know those guys got a lot of flack at times from the industry and certainly from the media. But now, when you as the performer of those songs to the people who bought them, you know from every festival you do now that those songs have really stood the test of time, haven't they?
Well, they are. Yeah, they're timeless, and you know you have to. I mean, you cannot go on a stage, and I've seen a lot of people do this, and you can't go on stage and not sing those songs. You know, you have to sing them. And not that I'm quite happy to sing them, they're great, they're all good songs. I mean, they are, whatever you say, them, great songwriters, great producers. Some things did sound the same, and some songs that should have gone to some artists went to other artists, but you know, that is exactly how Tamla Motown worked.
Sure.
But you know, if you don't want to do that, then don't sign up. That's
absolutely. Absolutely. But you as a songwriter yourself have been really successful over the years and writing for other artists. Is that kind of something that you're still involved with now as well? You know, you say you're going to be going back into the studio. You're not retiring from performing. Are you?
I'm not. Sorry.
I was going to say, do you still do that? Do you still write music and create your own music yourself?
I don't. I have to be honest. I'm not writing songs as much these days. But when I go in this, because I've had some. I mean, I don't know if you know, but I have been having some tracks out over the last 7 or 8 years with a small label called Energize.
Yeah.
And and Pete Ware, who I co-produce with Pete Ware. I like to. Pete Ware is your technical guy. He's a great musician, great keyboard player, and I come up with all the ideas, and kind of that's how we work together. And I'm really proud of those things that we did and we're still doing. So that's, that was an area that I wanted to get into. We also, Peter and I had a go. We nearly had a success with a band called Crave back in the sort of late 90s going into 2000s, but it just didn't quite come off. We couldn't get them the right deal. But, I wanted to have a go at doing those things because I am creative and I like coming up with ideas. So, it's given me a chance to sort of get that out of my system as well, if you like, because I know I can do it. And I'm very proud of those albums.
Well, we can't wait to have you with us, Hazell, at Wentworth Festival on the 18th of September. I know we're not quite your very last gig. You've got one more after.
I've got one more
after us. But have you thought yet about how that moment's going to feel when you're saying goodbye to the crowd for the very last time? Or are you trying not to think about that?
I'm trying not to think about it too much. I mean, last Sunday I did my last Pride.
Which has been
And
a
I've been
massive
singing-
part of your life for years,
Yeah,
hasn't it?
and that 38 years I've been doing Prides, and I'm a big supporter, as you probably know. And yeah, it was tricky. And someone said to me, as a band that were there, one of the guys, lovely guys, they said to me, and it kind of triggered it off really. They said, is this the first Pride you've ever done? And it did make me laugh. I said, no, but it's the last. And then I told them, the poor guy, he felt terrible. But I did sort of make an announcement that night, and I did it just before I sang Searching at the end, and it was videoed, and it's really good. And I did make a little announcement then, and it is a strange feeling. And of course, I'm going to be very emotional, and I will, you know,
Well,
I will shed a few tears, I'm sure.
we're honoured that you've chosen us as one of your final ones, and we're really looking forward to it. After the year and a half we've been through, you know, it's nice to be back doing it, and we really can't wait to have you with us.
Back in the end of, I think it was July, I did Let's Rock, and getting back on that stage again was very emotional. And when I came up, I mean, and I wasn't the only one. I think most artists that came off that day shed a few tears.
Yeah.
Just being very emotional, and it is emotional, and yeah, and of course I'm going to miss it. Of course I will do, but you know.
Well, it's not over yet. You've got an incredible show planned for us that we cannot wait to see on the 18th of September. Listen, thanks so much. Thanks for talking to us today, Hazell, and we'll see you in a few days. We'll see you in a very soon.
Yeah, I look forward to seeing you all.